Aerospace engineers are reverse engineering 3000-year-old Sanskrit text, and the technology actually works. I'm going to show you why ancient Indian flying machine stories are suddenly being taken seriously in 2025. NASA used the exact propulsion system described in these texts. Military researchers are comparing the flight characteristics to modern UAPs, and a 1200-year-old stone carving shows technology that should not exist for another millennium. In 1964, NASA launched CERT-1 using ionized mercury for propulsion. Ancient Sanskrit texts specified mercury as aircraft fuel 3000 years earlier. In 2025, researchers published comparative analysis between these ancient Vimana descriptions and modern unidentified aerial phenomena. The characteristics match. By the end, you will know three facts that break the official story. You will see the physical evidence carved in a stone, and you will understand why a man in 1895 supposedly flew an aircraft 8 years before the Wright brothers using instructions from a text everyone called mythology. December 8th century. Ellora caves, Maharashtra, India. A sculptor chips away at volcanic basalt. He is carving a scene from the Ramayana, the demon king Ravana flying to battle. Every temple painting shows Ravana in a massive flying chariot. Every children's book depicts a palace with wings, but this sculptor carves something different. 6 safety straps, a circular propeller with visible spinning blades, a control stick at the top, a downward-facing thrust mechanism. This is not a chariot, it is a jetpack. The carving is authenticated, the dating is confirmed, and it shows a device that wouldn't be invented until 1961 when Bell Aerosystem built the rocket belt. Here is what bothers me about this. If you are inventing a mythological flying machine for your religious story, why include engineering details? Why show safety harnesses? Why carve a propeller mechanism? The ancient texts don't just say these Vimanas flew, they say they made a big noise on takeoff. They say air currents made them unstable. That is not poetry, that is aerodynamics. For over a century, mainstream historians had one answer. They did not. The Vimanas described in ancient texts were mythology, spiritual allegory, beautiful stories about gods, nothing more. And then it got worse. The topic became associated with ancient aliens. The guy who made this famous, Heinrich von Däniken, faced a court-ordered psychoanalysis that called him a prestige seeker, a liar, and an unstable psychopath. When your subject becomes a cable TV punchline, serious researchers avoid it. But here is the thing, this was not the first time someone noticed the details. In 1895, a Sanskrit scholar named Shivkar Bapuji Talpade allegedly flew an unmanned aircraft at Chowpatty Beach in Bombay. 3,000 people reportedly witnessed it. The London newspaper ran a headline in 1974. Was an Indian the first man to fly? In 1964, NASA launches CERT using mercury and propulsion, the same fuel source ancient text specified. In 2025, aerospace researchers published findings comparing Vimana descriptions to modern UAP sightings. The flight characteristics match: rapid acceleration, trans-medium travels, electromagnetic effects. 3,000 years, same concepts, same engineering goals. The engineer who proved it. Let me walk you through what happened when an aerospace engineer actually analyzed this text. His name is Travis Taylor. He has real credentials. Department of Defense, NASA contracts, the works. Taylor studied the Vimanika Shastra, a controversial text that contains technical specification for ancient aircrafts. He ran the designs through modern aerodynamic principle. His conclusion: the shapes were perfectly aerodynamic. Now, where this gets interesting, the Vimanika Shastra is not even ancient. It was written down between 1918 and 1923 by a man named Subbarya Shastri. He claimed he was channeling the ancient sage Bharadwaj through automatic writing. Skeptics immediately called it a hoax, a modern fabrication pretending to be ancient wisdom. But that makes the mystery worse, not better. Because whether this knowledge came from 3000 BC or 1920, someone described aircraft that actually work. The Shakuna Vimana has two wings, a tail section for directional control, and heat-resistant alloy construction. That is not a flying palace, that is a fixed-wing aircraft. The Rukma Vimana has long vertical ducts with fans at the top. Air gets sucked downward to generate lift. You know what that is? That is VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing. We did not develop ducted fan VTOL systems until the 1960s. The F-35B uses this exact principle to hover. The Harrier jump jet, modern hovercraft, all based on the same concept. Vertical airflow creates lift. The text describe the Rukma Vimana traveling at 725 miles per hour. The text describe solar power systems. The text describe a mercury-based propulsion engine. And here is the thing that keeps me up at night. NASA's CERT mission in 1964 used ionized mercury as propellant. It worked. The spacecraft successfully tested ion propulsion in orbit. So we have two possibilities here. Either ancient people randomly guessed the exact element that would work for ion propulsion 3000 years before we invented it, or someone somewhere actually tested it. Now the official explanation is elegant. Ancient cultures had sophisticated imagination. They described things beyond their capability. These accounts reflect aspiration, not achievement. And I get it. Where are the physical remains? Where is even one intact Vimana sitting in a museum? Where is the wreckage? The materials described, Somaka, Morthavika, Saundalika, can't be translated into modern chemistry. We don't know what they are. Without that translation, replication becomes impossible. Everything made sense. Absence of physical evidence supports the symbolic interpretation. The carved jetpack, artistic representation of divine movement. Talpade's 1895 flight, no photographs, no flight logs, just stories. Travis Taylor saying the designs work. Statistical probability, describe enough shapes, some will accidentally align with engineering principles. Everything made sense until I found what they did not address. The evidence they ignore. Let me show you how deep this actually goes. We are going to work through this like investigators, starting with what everyone knows, then diving into what most people miss. This is the iceberg, 4 layers, each one darker than the last. Layer 1, surface, what the public knows. Ancient Indian texts describe flying vehicles called Vimanas. The Ramayana mentions the Pushpak Vimana. The Mahabharata describes the Saubha Vimana. Mainstream interpretation, these are literary devices, symbolic representations of divine power, beautiful mythology, nothing more. The alternative gets lumped with the ancient astronaut theories, little green men, aliens building pyramids, the kind of stuff that makes serious researchers cringe. Layer 2, below surface, what contradicts the official story. Here is what the official story does not address. That Ellora carving shows 6 distinct safety straps, a propeller's mechanism with visible blades, a control stick, a downward-facing thrust system. This isn't Ravana flying. This is engineering documentation. The Mahabharata describes the Saubha Vimana creating a big noise that panicked elephants, pressure strong enough to scatter grass, and then it adds this detail. Air currents made them unstable. Stop right there. Air currents causing instability. That is not poetry. That is the exact problem every early aviator faced. Turbulence, crosswinds, unstable flight. We solved it with stabilizers, ailerons, and fly-by-wire system in the 20th century. If you are inventing a mythological flying chariot, why include a realistic engineering challenge your culture has never encountered? Then there is Talpade. Talpade's 1895 flight, witnesses at Chowpatty Beach reportedly saw an unmanned aircraft fly. A London newspaper investigated this claim in 1974. So which is it? Did he misread mythology and accidentally build a working aircraft, or was he reading instructions? Layer 3, deep pattern recognition across time. This is not an isolated case. Historical accounts suggest Nazi Germany sent scholars to India in the 1930s. They were not searching for spiritual enlightenment. They were looking for technical information. A Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, ancient Indus Valley cities, archaeologists found skeletons with elevated radiation levels. They found vitrified stones requiring temperatures above 1500 degrees Celsius. Ancient texts describe weapons called Brahmastra, intense heat, poisoned air, hair and nails falling out. The mainstream explanation, natural fires, pottery kilns. But pottery kilns don't vitrify stone across entire city blocks. In 2025, researchers published comparative analysis. Vimana descriptions match modern UAP characteristics. Rapid acceleration, transmedium travel, air-to-water electromagnetic effects, luminous appearances. Ancient texts describe the Tripura Vimana as capable of flying in air, sailing on water, traveling on land. We're trying to build vehicles like that right now. The Chayagrahana technique, holographic decoys, modern military's research projection systems for the same purpose. Mental control of Vimanas. DARPA develops brain-computer interface to control drones with thought. 3000 years, same concepts. The questions that haunt investigations. Now we are at the bottom, the questions that cannot be answered with the evidence we have. The materials described in the text, Somalka, Morthavika, Soundalika, can't be translated. We don't know what they are. The text describes combining them to create alloys like Rajaloha, Trinetra Loha. Modern aerospace engineering has the same goals: titanium alloys, carbon composites, materials that are light, strong and heat resistant. But we can't verify if the ancient materials match because we cannot decode the names. Where are the older versions of Vimanika Shastra? If Subarya Shastri channeled it in 1920, was he channeling something that once existed? Claims suggest British colonial authorities systematically removed Sanskrit texts from India. Nazi researchers allegedly did the same in the 1930s. If true, where are those texts now? What happened to Talpade's aircraft? If 3,000 people witnessed it fly in 1895, where is the wreckage? Where are his notes? Where are the photographs? And this carving, this 1200-year-old piece of stone, why would a sculptor in the 8th century who had never seen a jetpack, never seen a propeller, never seen a pilot wearing a communication device, carve exactly those things into stone? Either this is the most elaborate coincidence in archaeological history, or someone somewhere a very long time ago saw something fly. Alright, we have seen the evidence, now let us talk about what it means. There are these three explanations for all of this, and I want you to decide which one makes the most sense. Theory 1, lost technology. Ancient India possessed advanced aerospace knowledge that was later lost through invasion, colonization, or natural disaster. The Vimanika Shastra preserved fragments of this knowledge. Talpade's 1895 flight was a successful reconstruction that was then suppressed. Supporting evidence, the technical specificity, mercury ion propulsion, VTOL systems, solar power, these are not vague, they are precise. The problem, where is the physical evidence? Where are the remains of even one Vimana? I remember they have found one Vimana in Afghanistan. Theory 2, parallel imagination. Human engineering imagination follows universal principle. Ancient scholars, through pure thought and observation of nature, conceptualized flight systems that happen to align with what we would later discover. Birds have wings, so the Shakuna Vimana has wings. The sun provides energy, so solar-powered craft. Mercury is mysterious and liquid, so use it for propulsion. Supporting evidence, every culture imagined flight. Greeks had Icarus, Chinese had flying chariots. Convergent thinking explains the parallels. The problem, that does not explain the specifics. Theory 3, suppressed history. The knowledge was real, it was documented, and powerful institutions deliberately buried it. British colonial authorities confiscated text and suppressed Talpade's work to maintain technological superiority. Nazi Germany sought these texts for military advantage. Modern governments continue the suppression because acknowledging ancient aerospace technology would disrupt established historical narratives. Supporting evidence, texts did disappear from Indian archives during colonial rule. The 1974 newspaper investigation, the Nazi interest in Sanskrit scholars. The problem, no smoking gun, no whistleblower documents, no leaked files proving suppression. What we cannot ignore. Here is what they never addressed. Why would colonial powers specifically target technical Sanskrit text if they were just mythology? Unless they knew something we are only now rediscovering. Top 5 unanswered questions. Forget theories. Here are the 5 questions that keep me up at night. 5th, material mystery. Rajaloha, Trinetra Lohas, Somaka, Morthavika. The text describes materials we cannot identify. Why can't modern linguists and chemists decode these terms? Are they metaphors, lost languages, or compounds we have not discovered yet? 4th, the carving contradiction. The Ellora carving is 1200 years old, authenticated, unaltered. It shows a jetpack with safety straps, a propeller, and a control stick. How did an 8th century sculptor imagine components that would not exist for another millennium? The Talpade paradox. Did 3,000 people witness a flight in 1895, or did not they? A major newspaper investigated it 79 years later. Why investigate a myth? Where are the witness testimonies? Where is the aircraft? The aerodynamic impossibility. The Mahabharata describes air currents making Vimanas unstable. That is a real aerodynamic challenge that pilots faced until we invented stabilizers. If you are inventing flying chariots for your story, why include technical problems your culture has never encountered? The NASA parallel. Ancient text specifies mercury as propellant. NASA's CERT in 1964 used ionized mercury for propulsion. That's not mythology converging with science. That is mythology predicting science. How? So which one bothers you most? Here is what I want to know. Do you think this lost technology, parallel imagination, or suppressed history? Drop your theory in the comments, and if you have got the sources I missed, Sanskrit translation, historical documents, engineering analysis, share them. We all investigate it here. Because here is the thing, a shape that flies, that is one thing. Ancient people watched birds, they imagined wings, that makes sense. But propulsion system, a fuel source that actually works, safety harnesses carved into stone. The Ellora sculptor carved a propeller mechanism, he carved safety straps, he carved a control stick. Why? Either this is the most elaborate coincidence in archaeological history, or someone somewhere a very long time ago saw something that should not have existed and carved into stone so we would find it 3,000 years later.